Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments. Ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR. Practice management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company. Attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. Chiro Health USA. Chiro Script AI. Chiro Moguls. Pure Chiro Notes. 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 724 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Nicholas James Nelson, and today we talked about his new book, The Alchemy. Stay tuned for the full episode.
Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I have Nicholas James Nelson on with me today, up in Canada, and I'm really excited to have him on. He has a new book, The Alchemy book, I believe it's called.
Inner Alchemy.
The Inner Alchemy book. And He has a book signing coming up March 1st. I'm sure he's going to tell you all about it. We're going to jam on chiropractic philosophy, and we're going to have an amazing interview here. But before we jump into this episode, I'm going to let you know our big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? First things first is we protect the freedom of speech. I think it's very important. Him being a writer and an author, we know what it's like to be traffic throttled and shadow banned and censored. And we never do that to anybody. So we keep producing whether the algorithms like us or not. We also believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. They're not the same things, but if you're watching this and you're not in the chiropractic space, go and find a chiropractor in your local neighborhood or your city and ask them all the questions you have under the sun about your health and chiropractic. And they'd be happy to help you along your journey. Furthermore, we believe in protecting the sacred trust. Nick and I were talking about that before this episode started, but it's BJ Palmer's last written words. He was the guy that took chiropractic mainstream. And if you want to learn more about the profession, go to the show notes and click on sacred trust, and you're going to fall back in love with this profession if you're in it. And you're going to learn more about it if you're just learning about chiropractic. We also believe in subluxation-based chiropractic. I know I shouldn't have to say that, but they're taking this out of the schools. So if you're, a new grad or somebody that maybe has lost their way, please share the show with them and just ask them to listen to the first 2 to 3 minutes of the show so they can get tapped back into the profession. We also believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical, gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual, which creates this amazing transfer to educated intelligence. And with that, I'm so thankful to have Dr. Nicholas James Nelson on with me today. Welcome.
Thank you. Super stoked to be here. And I love that intro because it pretty much outlines all the reasons why I know this show is right for me and why I think this show is so important. So thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So how many years you been in DC?
6 years now. Owned my own practice since day one of that as well.
So 6 years. What was the first thing that was the touch point that said, I think I'm going to be a chiropractor?
I think it kind of flirted with me a long time ago. And when I was younger, I had no idea or no interest in secondary of any sort. I was not a great student, nor did I really care for school. So I had no expectation to be a chiropractor or anything that required further education when I was younger. Coming out of school, no idea what I wanted to do. I moved into the health realm and I was a personal trainer and quite a successful one for about 6 years there. And through that, I started realizing that there was a lot more that I didn't know. And the better I got with the body, the more I realized how much of it was still a mystery. And so chiropractic was my first initial love in terms of where I could take a career of physical personal training, anatomy, physiology, and move it into a hands-on kinesthetic learning style practice. So originally I went back to school for that. And then when I got to school in my undergrad, I started taking a ton of philosophy and neurology courses. And I fell in love with neurology and psychology and kind of the whole aspect of consciousness for the human experience. So I started moving in the direction of wanting to be more in a potentially medical realm for neurology, neuroscience, or neurosurgery. And then my mom got sick, and I spent a lot of time in hospitals around a lot of medical practitioners. And I, over the course of those couple of years, very clearly learned that was not an area I wanted to be in. So for me, I moved back to chiropractic as the plumb line, the true north of where I started with and where I wanted to end with. But what was pretty damn cool about it all is when I got to grad school, like most people, I only knew a fraction of what chiropractic really was and what it meant. So when I got there, I thought I was going to be working with athletes my whole life, maybe, be the chiropractor on the Oilers team. And that was my highest aspiration. When I got to grad school and I learned what it really was about, and I learned that it was literally neurology applied in human time, it absolutely blew my mind. And it was like a full circle moment where I honestly felt like chiropractic chose me a little bit as opposed to me choosing chiropractic. And every day since, I learned more, and I'm even more grateful that I landed here.
Listening to your story, it's really cool that you came from this like physical world, and you're like, well, how can I get into helping more people? And I guess that's a question for me, since you said, hey, I like the way your introduction is. That resonates with me. This is the perfect show for me to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about philosophy a little bit, and how has that transitioned all the things that you do today as your base?
Yeah, from day one, even when I was coming at it from a physical side of things, I had a personal vested interest in theology and religious studies and spiritual studies on the side. So I had been consistently from grad school or undergrad on learning as much as I could about the physical and learning as much as I could about the etherical and spiritual out in my own time, own world. And to me, those two blended together in such a symbiotic way that it became very clear early on that you could not have the physical without the spiritual, and that those two things were the two sides of the exact same coin. And so for me, the philosophy behind the body is really what all the physical is guided upon. It's the consciousness that creates the blueprint, that creates the manifestation of the organic physical into matter. And that was something that, it's very clear from quantum physics all the way down to even Newtonian physics, being Isaac Newton being a massive occultist and alchemist. Every branch of science, the further I studied, showed me that the people that made it further and seen further than the others were the ones that combined the philosophy with the physical. And that's how they came to their aha moments.
Yeah, I think it's really cool when people can understand that chiropractic isn't just about the adjustment. It's about the impulse that changes the pathways of somebody's trajectory for life. And I admire the chiropractic method so much, but so many people just don't know that what they're looking for in this lifetime is called chiropractic. And I think
Totally.
that's a big thing that we have to overcome. Before we get too far into the interview, let's talk about your book.
Sure.
Let's talk about how 6 years of being a doctor of chiropractic and understanding now the basis of chiropractic philosophy in your outside studies into the ethereal world, into religious studies. How does that come into this book with alchemy?
Yeah. So when I was reading all of the other things in undergrad, I never found like there was a cohesive line that pulled those together. And even though I could see both sides of the same coin, it was always, they were struggling to find a grounding point. And when I got to grad school and I learned the chiropractic philosophy, It was an incredibly eye-opening moment because the philosophy itself from DD and then BJ, all of that came through a similar study and pursuit of the same materials and the same avenues that I had gone down, and they had just done it, 100 years prior, and they put together, to my opinion, the most cohesive and all-encompassing philosophy of the human experience as it's related to the human body that I've ever read. And so what I found is that with reading all the material I did and reaching the conclusions that I was able to reach, it was years of dissecting material and bringing the ideas together in my mind and wrapping them around each other. And Dee Palmer and BJ did similar things. And I think they reached a conclusion themselves that at a certain point, when you feel like you've seen something that nobody else has, or you're able to at least take multiple stories and synthesize them and communicate them to people in a way that they've never heard, it's kind of your duty to do that. And for me, this book became my duty in that I had looked and I'd read hundreds of self-help books, science books, philosophy books that tried to dive into the different aspects of what it means to be a truly healthy human. But every one of these books is very finite in their topic, and they dive deep in singular topics that if you have the time and energy and understanding of background to take this information in and cohesively understand it and use it in your life, then you're a step ahead of most. But taking all of those and putting it into a single story where an average reader can take this in and learn the breadth of what this all means as a human was a book that I could not find. And so I took it upon myself to eventually decide that if I can't find that book and that's the book I really want to read, then that's the book I have to write.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear people that have creative drive and that want to share something and a message to get to more people. And I do love the idea that you have like a philosophical chiropractic base. How can other people that get the book utilize it to, I guess, take ideas for it and be effective with communicating chiropractic better?
That's a great question, actually. Chiropractic philosophy, I think the thing that people struggled with it most in school is that it weaved between being so grandiose sounding, but also so simplistic that the filling in of those blanks and that spectrum was something that it's required by our own understandings and our own experiences and our own research. And so when you read the green books, it's similar to reading the Bible in some ways. If you don't have enough theological background to understand what it's saying, it just sounds like a whole bunch of gibberish. And you may get points in there that you take from it, but most of it will be lost to you. And so this book, I think for anybody that's in the chiropractic realm that's struggling to understand the philosophy applied, it will be a very good guidebook to lead you through what does it actually mean to have innate intelligence inside of our body? And what does it mean to truly trust that innate intelligence and not let our educated mind get in the way of our innate mind? And the main purpose of the book is to provide enough information that is easily accessible that anybody reading it, whether they're a chiropractic student, chiropractic doctor, or lay individual of any profession, can use that to next time they get sick, or next time they think they're getting sick, or next time there's a media blast about something they should be scared about. It can be a leveling ground for them to bounce it off the ideas in the book and wonder and think about, is this really what we're being told, or is my body much smarter than we think it is?
I just love the fact that it's real world applicable and that people can read the book and they can find ways to take action. And it's not just a text that you highlight and then you shelf. I like the fact that it's very user friendly for people to base it into their current lifestyle. Say you had 5 chiropractic students in front of you right now. What advice would you give them to them about becoming chiropractors?
I think my advice would be threefold. First and foremost, build yourself a parallel curriculum. And so what we were alluding to earlier in the podcast was, when I was in grad school, I made a point of building a parallel curriculum where I read texts of my own interest and my own, I guess, curiosities to fill in the blanks of what I'd learned in school. And I found that gave me the ability to understand and apply the info that we were taught in a way that was much more, I guess, holistic, and be able to take in the information and slot it into a story that I already understood so that I could remember it instead of just trying to memorize answers for questions. So take the time. Don't spend every minute you have studying the textbook because you're told to. Take some time to actually study books around those topics that can help you build a cohesive story of understanding. That's number one. Number two is dive into the why. Figure out why we're doing this and really try and learn what chiropractic is outside of just, an elevator pitch or a very basic foot on the hose analogy that everyone learns first day in school. Really understand it better, because what I've found in my practice is many people in our profession don't know how to communicate it in a way that actually makes it sound as profound as it really is. So if you're telling a story to people and it's either the most simplified version of it possible, or you're basically giving them, your cue card notes of it, and then when they ask questions, you're not able to fill in the blanks, you lose credibility really fast. And chiropractic is incredibly scientific and incredibly profound. And the only way people are going to learn that is if we learn it well enough to communicate it to them. And then the third thing would just simply be take the time to master your craft, because you can be the best thinker, the best talker, the best advertiser, all you want. If you're shitty at doing the job, it's going to reflect on you. So chiropractic is a synthesis of all three of those things. And I think that the more you can take each one of them seriously and really try and master each one, then you'll have, all of the support mechanisms needed to be successful.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments. Ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR. Practice management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company. Attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. Chiro Health USA. ChiroScript AI. Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
So you talked about the last fold, which is the 3. And that's the adjustment. How would you advise somebody to get really good at delivering the care?
Practice, but also respect for the people you're working on. Every single adjustment, it's not about, you're painting a picture, and if you put a wrong line somewhere, you can paint it over again. Every single adjustment has a powerful effect on people. And if you are going to believe that chiropractic is powerful in its healing abilities, you have to understand that chiropractic can also be powerful if done wrong for the wrong reasons. And so respecting what we do is number 1. Practicing what we do is number 2. And one of the biggest ones that I personally believe in, and there may be some debate across the profession, but it's not about looking good while you're doing it. It's not about the show. We don't need to figure out which adjustments look best on camera. We need to figure out which adjustments are most consistent and do the best job and are the best for the person in front of you. And that should guide your treatment.
This is a fun question for you, just because you brought it up in a roundabout way. Do you believe that we should have ever started showing the public chiropractic adjustments on videos?
I feel like we should have, yes, but with all great things, they go sour. And I think that we have brought our technique to something that in a lot of ways has just become almost like a sideshow or a party trick. And I had a YouTube channel that was pretty okay. I mean, I wasn't extravagant at it, but it did well for my first few years. I always tried to make sure that the assessment portion, though, and the philosophy and the science was part of the videos. But in the end, TikTok, YouTube, all of it's about short clips that sell. And so I think that there's too much done right now to make shock factors in these videos that, yes, it brings the attention to a lot of people, but I get at least a handful of times a week somebody telling me that they obsessively have watched these videos for years, but they've been terrified to come in because it just looks so crazy. So unfortunately, it's gone in the direction of greed, and a lot of people care more about how many views they get than actually presenting a professional profession. So yeah, I think that in the end, people have to see what we do, and I think that's a great tactic, but I would hazard to say it's gone too far.
Yeah, I'm just curious because people asked me right as it started to come onto the scene, should this be a thing? And I was like, the adjustment's sacred and it's an individual thing. And I always felt like it was cheapening the experience. And I'm not telling anybody what to do or what not to do. I just tell you my own opinion that when I was first asked about this, a couple years ago, should they be doing this? And I was like, I think it's going to eventually make the idea of the adjustment not as powerful. And it might give people it's like seeing the Wizard of Oz, if you can. Like when you pull back the curtain, what's there? Well, the magic is in the patient. The magic is in the patient care. Mm-hmm. The magic is in that moment. And it's not in somebody scrolling through a social media app saying, oh gosh, I'm going to watch hours of people adjusting people. Mm-hmm. And then they have no idea what chiropractic is. They just see it as something of like you said, it's a sideshow. So I think we just have to be really careful. And that's why I say we protect the sacred trust, because if we don't hold that line, then people will do anything that they want. So, that's my rebuttal to the whole thing is, be careful what you do because the world has eyes on you. And I think that, we can sensationalize things only so much until it becomes passe. So
totally. And it does go back to that why that we started with is if the reason you have somebody in front of you and the treatment you're about to apply is for a reason of your own self elevation and more views, then you've lost the reason of doing it for them and for what they came in for. And that's a line that we all have to know not to cross. And it's hard to know sometimes when you're in the moment. And I understand that, but I do agree with you in your thoughts on this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fundamentalist. I'm like, what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom, right?
Good analogy. Absolutely.
So as we move forward, where do you see the profession headed? I mean, we can future cast 4 years, 10 years, 20 years. What do you think?
I think that we are at a very pinnacle time in our profession where we really are at a fork in the road and we have a choice, because what has happened in the last 5 years it's changed the way people look at healthcare, and people have lost a lot of faith and learned, the veil has come down and they've seen behind and they've seen the cooks in the kitchen, and now they don't really want to eat the food and they want to learn a different way of doing it. And this is where chiropractic has from the very beginning been so powerful and shone. And that's the simple fact that we have a vastly different perspective and a different lens that we look through that can be applied to natural healing in a way that there's many beautiful alternative healing methods, but I think the philosophy and the fundamental application of chiropractic sits in a category completely of its own when it comes to alternative medicine. And I think that we have the opportunity right now, if we are willing and if we have the guts to stand up and fight for it, to get our true chiropractic message to more people than we ever have before. But it comes down to each and every one of us and whether or not we are going to be willing to ruffle some feathers, or if we're just going to consistently be told or do what we're told. And we can either kind of fade into the background right now, or we can take the opportunity where the world needs us more than it ever has, arguably, and fill that void and teach them how their bodies work, and take responsibility for spreading and sharing something that could help the world en masse.
Well, everything's timing. And my mentor, Larry Goodman, would always tell me if we do anything out of sequence, we'll have to go back and redo the sequencing again. And I think we've done a lot. We've botched. The whole world has botched patient care. And I just believe that we have a great ability to rebound with the chiropractic method, because I do believe over the next 5 years, specifically because I'm in America, we have RFK Jr. coming in as the guy that's going to help straighten out some of the stuff, I hope. But we have a solid 4 years that we can really work on getting people to understand where health comes from. And it's not a pill, a potion, or a lotion. And I'll reframe it from my famous interview I did with Les Brown. He says, I love chiropractic because it doesn't cut it out, drug it out, or burn it out. And I think when we think about the fundamentals of this profession moving forward, people are going to really admire chiropractic for being a hands-on approach. And I think that most of the big box medicine style practice is going to go into more of a concierge like data like set instead of going to see like an MD. But there's nothing that will ever be able to replicate or take place of the chiropractic method with the chiropractic analysis, the chiropractic adjustment. Like, I don't care where we are.
You can't replace these, right? Exactly.
No. And even if the economy bombed and there was no more money in the world, like chiropractors would be in more demand than ever. And because the doctor of the future doesn't care about drugs, the doctor of the future cares about the human frame and how to get people healthy and prevent them from getting sick. And I think that that's something that we really have to focus on and understand, that chiropractors are the doctor of the present. And in 20 years from now, if we hold those standards in that line, then, you know, big box medicine becomes extinct like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And there'll be a higher demand for people to have hands-on approach with a method that actually produces patient care, because that's really what's lacking in the other side of the story is the allopathics. Their house of cards is tumbling quickly because you can't coerce people into any type of long-term care and expect them to just lay down and take it. And I think that that's what we've seen happen since the scamdemic is so many people had to lay down and just take it. And now I believe there's a rebellious force in the nature of people that were like back in the day where they would say, hell no, we won't go. And I think that we're having more of an uprising of that, you know, political stance. But I think they did a tremendous job of drugging people up, making them ultimately sick. So we have to do better as we move forward. I know that was a little long-winded, but I felt it was pertinent to the topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming up on the end of our show, who are some of your mentors? Like, who helped pour into you? Who helped you become the man you are today?
Chiropractically, specifically, there's a gentleman that was a professor at my school named Dr. Wayne Coleman, and he was a very important figure in my life during graduate school. He taught me a lot about what it means to be caring and heart-centered and good at your job without the flair and just there for the right reasons. And he was a fantastic mentor. After graduating, there's been people that have definitely made an impact. Dr. Tim Young has been an individual that has consistently spoken about the chiropractic message and the philosophy. And I think that that's a powerful voice in the world that we need to maintain. Dr. Billy DeMoss, he is a pivotal individual in my learning or my education, because his what's it called, the seminar, the CalJam seminar, was the first place that I actually saw RFK Jr. 8 or 9 years ago, where he spoke about everything he's speaking about today. And I was a young second-year chiropractic student, and that was like just that was the day that my whole world changed. And it taught me to look down everything in a way that I had never been trained. So Billy DeMoss is really lives the philosophy, and he brings that message through with the people that he's brought to the chiropractic world. And then another big one that he wasn't a chiropractor, isn't a chiropractor, but I was lucky to be in school during the time that Dr. Bruce Lipton was a guest professor at Life West. So I got 3 months of learning directly from him, and his philosophy, or his science of epigenetics, has really been a fundamental, backbone of my understanding of the human body and the way I look at the body inside of my book. So those are some big ones.
Yeah, Billy and Tim are close friends of mine. And
Nice.
when I first started doing my first documentary on chiropractic, I started watching videos on YouTube, and I came across Billy, and I was like, who is this lunatic? And I was like, I got to get to know this guy. So I went on social media and I shared his posts every day for about probably a month. And eventually he asked me who the hell I was.
Nice.
And I was at that Cal Jam that you were at with RFK Jr., where they generated $500,000 for the Children's Health Defense. And I thought it was, I thought it was, groundbreaking for trying to do the right thing. And Tim Young, man, you couldn't ask for a better guy that just stands in the fire every day, whether people love him or hate him. He just continuously bangs the drum, and he's helping a lot of people become successful in their businesses and practices too. And RFK, I've interviewed him back in 2019. He hasn't skipped a beat. Billy DeMoss has been on the show a handful of times. Tim Young's been on the show a handful of times, and I've actually had the honor of interviewing Bruce Lipton on the show too. So
no way.
The biology of belief is huge, and epigenetics is something everybody should tap into. So your mentors and the people that have helped you guide your path forward, I have a lot of respect for a lot of them. So kudos to you for finding good people to plug into.
Thank you. I'm very blessed. Yeah.
Yeah, now we have each other, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Your vibe attracts your tribe, I always say. So you find the right people, and when the tide rises, all ships rise, right? That's the whole game plan here.
Yeah. So 6 years in practice. Tell me something that you've seen over your career so far that just inspires you to keep moving forward. Maybe a miracle story that you've seen in your clinic.
Yeah, there's been a few, and it's interesting because the way things work in the area that I practice, we have a legal parameter of a list of about 180 things that we are not allowed to say that we have any impact on. So in order for this podcast to actually reach the public and me be able to share it, I have to make sure that I don't cross any of those boundaries. So I've seen a lot of miracle stories in my office that are phenomenal that I'd love to talk about privately. One, however, that I can talk about, and this was the most recent one, only about a month ago. It's one of those things that really shows you why you're doing what you're doing. But there was a baby that came into my office. Well, the parents brought in a baby, and this baby was 3 weeks old. And when they brought him into my office, he was screaming his absolute head off. And these parents looked like they'd been through a war. And they had told me that he was 3 weeks old, and not for a single minute in 3 weeks has he slept or stopped crying since the day he was born. And so they were just at their wits' end. And, obviously I know how powerful chiropractic is, but that's one of those situations you're like, please, I hope I can help. And I adjusted this little baby and didn't stop crying at the time that he was at my office, but I did what I was trained to do, and I knew I did what I did. And I ended up calling them 2 days later because they canceled their appointment. And so I wanted to call and follow up. And they answered the phone and said that he has been sleeping for 3 days. And so they've all been sleeping. And so they've barely left the room because they're just catching up. And so that was about a month and a half ago. And I had them in for a follow-up just recently. And night and day, this was the happiest kid I've ever seen. Sleeps through the night every single day, feeds properly now. It was I know that baby will never know what happened. And I know that those parents will, they'll be grateful, but never really understand to what extent that maybe changed the pathway of that child. But it showed me that there's no single adjustment that is too little to change a life.
The power that made the body heals the body. The body needs nothing extra in it. It simply needs no interference. Once you clear the subluxation and the interference, the body self-regulates and self-heals. That is the most beautiful thing in the world when it comes to chiropractic philosophy. The people don't have to understand that. They just have to know that when you have a contortion or a disturbance and a misalignment of your spinal canal, and it puts pressure on your organ system, your glandular system, and your nerves, it's going to cause some type of effect in your body. When you clear that, now the body can go back into the balance of health, which is called homeostasis in the allopathic world. But in our world, we just call it cleared. So congratulations on clearing that little baby. And for anybody out there that wants to reach out to you or connect with you, where do we send them to?
Couple different platforms. So with my book, I have a website called thealchemybook.com. And on Instagram, it's at Inner Alchemy _book. My business is Element Chiropractic in Edmonton, Alberta. And so the website there is elementchiro.ca. And the Instagram is element _Chiro. And then my personal Instagram account is also at NINELSON 19. All of the above, reach out anywhere, but each one of those platforms is available and I run and operate them all myself.
And you guys can also find him once his episode's published over at chirohustle.com. And
and one last thing, if you don't mind, if anybody is in the Edmonton area, I do have a book signing at the Southgate Mall Indigo this Saturday, March 1st from 12 till 3 p.m. Would love to see anybody there, and any support means the world.
Yeah, today this was a dynamic interview with Dr. Nicholas, and I just really appreciate you being a guest with us today. Is there anything I didn't touch on that you would like to share with our audience today?
No, I think I'm honored to be on the interview list with the greats and the giants that you had mentioned prior. So I'm very happy that you had me on the show, and that's all I can ask for.
It's important to be modest and humble, but you're doing big work out there, and thank you for writing the book. Once again, check out his links that he mentioned. And if you guys want to learn more about him, he does manage his own social media, as he mentioned. So go check him out. Clap for him, support him, buy a book, and write him a nice review. And with that said, I'm going to close out, okay?
Thank you very much.
Awesome. You guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now. See you, Doc.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.